Welcome
I have no idea what's going on, guys. This could be a major fiasco.
to Lighting for Profits, your number one source for all things landscape lighting. Powered by Emery Allen. From lighting design, install, sales, and marketing.
And almost like, okay, is this where I get beat up in front of my friends? Like, what's going to happen?
We discuss everything you need to know to start and grow a successful landscape lighting business.
That's what I like.
Now, here is your host, Ryan Lee.
What is up? What is up? Welcome to the number one landscape lighting show in the world, maybe even the universe. I'm Ryan Lee. I'm your host of Lighting for Profits, powered by Emery Allen. And man, I'm telling you, the show keeps getting better and better. Here to help motivate and educate, to help you dominate. What's up, my friend Tom Garber? Thank you for your support. Thank you all for your support. Thank you for showing up live. Thank you for listening in on the podcast after, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, or the podcast. Appreciate it. And by the way, ask and you shall receive. The other day, I think it was Friday, I was like, man, I need some more reviews. I don't know if it was just because I needed to feel good about myself or what, but I just went ahead and did a post. And I was like, hey, if anyone's in a giving mood, I could use a 5-star review on my podcast. And man, thank you guys. It really made my day, made my weekend, put me in a great mood going into the weekend because people were like, done. And I went and checked. To make sure they really did. And you guys came through. So thank you so much. Awesome feedback. Awesome. Good stuff. So thank you guys. Really appreciate it. Today, we are going to be joined by the lovely Melody Edwards. And, the home service industry has been predominantly dominated by males. And I'm so grateful to build my network with some females because they add so much to the industry. And I'm telling you, you guys are going to love the guests today. We're going to talk about something that I didn't even know existed up until maybe a couple of years ago. And Melody's got some awesome tips to help you grow your business. And it doesn't have to be as hard as we make it. That's the thing that I'm finding. I like to make things kind of complicated. And there's easier ways, there's better ways, and Melody's already forged the path on some of these things. So I'm excited to pick her brain and have her on. She is the founder of Homeserviceva, and we're going to be talking about virtual assistants. Like, if you don't know what a virtual assistant is, you need to pay attention and probably watch and listen to this episode multiple times. I want to thank Emery Allen. Thanks, Tom, for your partnership. If you guys have not checked out Emery Allen yet, I promise you need to. You guys probably know this, but nothing hurts a quality landscape lighting install quite like flickering bulbs, a yellow fringe around the perimeter of the beam spread, or bulbs that burn out after a few on and off cycles. Don't jeopardize your customer's experience by using a budget bulb. Okay, don't do this. In fact, I saw it on a post the other day. Someone said they used an FX fixture and then a budget bulb in there, and they were wondering why they were having problems. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. So if you want to go out of your way to provide a world-class customer experience, choose Emery Allen. At the end of the day, it's what's on the inside that counts. You guys know this. Take advantage of Emery Allen's world-class customer service and 10% off your first order for new clients. All you need to do is email tomg@emeryallen.com to get more info. That's Tom Garber. Okay, he's the owner. He is a customer service machine. So just email him, tomg@emeryallen.com, and get your account set up today. And don't forget, they do offer discounted contractor pricing. So just try them out. Try them out. See what you think. Let me know. What is up, Chris Apfelstadt? How you doing, brother? Good to see you, man. All right, guys. The other day, and again, we're going to have Melody Edwards on in just a minute with Homeserviceva.com. So stick around. I promise you, you're going to like this. But the other day in the Facebook group, Landscape Lighting Mastermind, Ryan Jaso did a post on finding problems. And I thought it was a really cool post. I like the video he shared because, too many of us get hung up on the fact that we're designers, we're artists, or we're business owners or installers or whatever it is that we think we're the best at. We think we're special, right? And that's fine, right? You're probably special in your own way, right? I'll give you that. But at the end of the day, what really matters to people, to our future clients, is how we can help them solve their problems. That's what we're trying to do. We're really, again, you can be a designer, a lighting designer, an artist, whatever, but we're problem solvers. If you want to be successful, if you want to get your business to the next level, if you want to have an impact in your community, and you really want to be that dominant lighting designer, that dominant lighting artist, you need to be a better problem solver than anybody else in your area. And so we really do need to look at ourselves as problem solvers, as advisors, as helpers, guides, okay? And not worry so much about what we want to be known as, right? Listen, the majority of artists out there are broke, right? And they are because they don't understand this one thing. And if they could help figure out their own way to solve problems, they could still be an artist and be much more successful and have a bigger impact doing so. So the video talked about how we have to solve problems in business. And the thing that I liked about the video is he talked about, instead of problem solving, he talked about problem finding. And you have to be good at problem finding before you can be good at problem solving, right? And here's the thing, guys. Most of our future clients, like, you've got a bid later tonight, you've got one tomorrow, whenever your next meeting is. Sometimes they don't even know that they have a problem. And if they are aware of a problem, they don't understand how bad it is. And so it's your job to find the problem and expose it. And it kind of sounds mean, but it's like, if you find that wound, like, tear that thing open, like, find it and make them feel the pain, because the more pain they feel, the more likely they're going to hire you to solve that problem. And it's like, if I just come to you with like a bandage today, I'm like, hey, you want to buy a bandage? And you're just like, no, because you don't need one, right? Well, this was about 2 years ago. I was hiking in the Swiss Alps, and I didn't even remember this until I was literally like preparing for this today. About halfway up the mountain, like in the middle of the wilderness, there's a couple sitting there, and the guy has his shoes off and his socks off. I'm like, uh-oh, that's not good. Now, luckily, I was a Boy Scout, Eagle Scout, baby. Salute. I was prepared. I had the kit, and I had the stuff, and I had everything I needed to help the guy so that he could continue his hike and finish it, right? But how much, I just helped him out, hooked him up, whatever. But if I was to say, like, hey man, I got a bandage, how much you got, right? I'd be much more likely to be able to sell that bandage for more money, because he has a problem. He's in the middle of it, right? And so you got to think about, even in lighting, it's like, okay, but what are the problems in lighting? Like, are we, like, most people, I would say over half, maybe 70, 80% of people, 90% of people think that lighting is just a want. People don't need lighting, right? And it's hard to sell lighting if you're not convinced that people need lighting. I've told you guys this before. People need landscape lighting from you today. Convince yourself of those three things, and I promise you, this game gets a lot easier. So if you're convinced of that, then there has to be problems, and what problems are we solving? So think about it. And you guys have seen this in the brochures of every lighting company, manufacturer, everywhere. They always promote, okay, what does lighting solve the problem? It's safety, security, beauty, aesthetics. Another one I'm going to add is mental health. So safety. Okay, well, I'm sure you've had clients where their mother-in-law fell off the steps. Okay, you're telling me that lighting doesn't solve a problem? Their friends were over and their kid fell and tripped and then broke something, right? Okay, if they want to have their friends over, you're solving a problem. You're helping make their property more safe. Security. Okay, in Texas, where I was at, there's a neighborhood called Vaquero, gated neighborhood. A lot of celebrities, athletes, just high net worth people in there. And Vaquero is located in a dark sky town, so you're not supposed to even really have much lighting. And it was hard to sell lights in there, but we got away with it every once in a while. But one night, there was 11 robberies in one night. I mean, this was like, they should make a movie about this, because it was a highly sophisticated plan and execution of how they did this. 11 properties. One of our clients was Herschel Walker. His house got robbed, right? And the police, at the town meeting after, we're in a dark sky town where they don't like lighting. One of the first things they said, make sure everyone's got lighting, guys. You need to have well-lit entries and this and that and the other. It's like, okay, well, guys, make up your mind. You want to be dark sky, or you want to have lighting around your entries? So again, we're solving a problem. We're helping it be more secure, right? Beauty. Listen, majority of our clients, they want to look richer than their clients or their neighbors, right? And so we can help them solve the problem, and we can help them look more rich than their neighbors. So we can solve problems. We can make their place look awesome. And listen, if you're in the lighting industry, you're addicted to lights. Okay. We have a problem. We all do this. I mean, there's two ways to get to my house. You can drive down the street, or you can do this other street that comes like at my house. Well, of course, at night, I do the one that comes at my house because I'm obsessed with my lighting. Okay. It feels good to me. It feels good to come home. And I feel like, wow, I'm not just going to a house. I'm going to a home. I'm going to an experience, right? So we can solve that problem. And then finally, I'll add mental health. You know, this was something that up until a few years ago, no one really ever talked about. And now it's okay to talk about, right? And you guys know this, like you don't need to know that like depression is not going to be helped by sitting in a dark basement, right? I'm no like therapist or psychologist, but we all know that lighting, and there's studies on this stuff that shows how lighting positively affects your mood. It's the same reason why I drive down that one street at night, because it positively affects my mood. I want to feel good when I get home. So avoid depression with professionally designed lighting, guys. So there's other problems. There's tons of problems that you guys can solve. And what's up, Ray? Yes, I will be at the huge convention. That is August 18th, 19th. I will be there. So hope to see you there. A couple of problems that you guys can solve on your own that you have to kind of formulate. I just went through like the main industry ones, but you're going to have your own specific company value proposition, right? So one problem that people have is like, well, how do I decide what lighting is best and what differentiates this guy who's half your price or this one who's double your price, whatever? You got to figure out what the solution to that problem is and how you communicate that with your clients. Another problem that exists is our clients have had negative experiences with other contractors, and probably not even other lighting contractors, just painters, people who built their house, whatever it is, right? So those negative experiences are a problem. We have to figure out how to overcome that with a solution. If they've had lighting before and they've had lights going out too frequently because they didn't have Emery Allen bulbs, well, then you got to figure out how to communicate that solution. Maybe a problem is they want automation. They don't want to deal with anything. They just want the lights to do these things at this time and whatever else. Well, you've got to come with that solution. Maybe they've had poor communication in the past with, again, other contractors. Show them how you are a solution to that and how your 5-step system or whatever it is solves that problem of lack of communication with the client. So hopefully that's helpful, guys. And if it's not, then sucks to be you or me, one of us. So I just think it's so important to focus on sales, guys. Again, I don't want to take away your passion. If you're passionate about being a designer, an artist, whatever, the best installer in the world, that's awesome. And you should keep perfecting that craft. But I'm just telling you, like, if you really want to have an impact and you want to be even better at what you do, learn sales, learn how to be a problem finder so you can be a problem solver. All right, guys, it's time. The show always goes so quick, but it's time for me to find the buttons to welcome our guest. If you are ready, let me know. Let's turn it up. Let's get loud for our guest, Melody Edwards. Let's get loud. Who's ready? Okay. Here we go. I think I'm ready. Let's go. What is up?
Hey,
What's up, Melody?
how you doing? Can you hear me okay?
Oh, man, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. How are you doing?
Great. I'm doing great. I'm
Thanks
alive
for
and well.
my guest.
I am so happy to be here right now. And everything that you were saying before I came on, so much truth to all of it, including the mental health part. And something that you didn't mention that I think would be interesting for people is I've been in the home service industry a long time, and really women are the people, we care about our homes so much. And it's not just about looking better, it's really about that feeling that we get. And so lighting does give us a feeling, just like it gives you a feeling. So
Yeah, I think it's huge. And if people are not capitalizing on that, and it's not even taking advantage of it, like I truly believe I'm a helper. Like if
yes,
I go to someone's house, they call me, they want lighting, and they don't move forward with me, I've failed as a human. Like I
yeah,
need to help them make the right choice. So
yeah.
I love that. You know what? Let me read. Can I read your bio real quick?
Please do.
Okay. So this is cool because it's actually mentioned some things that we're going to talk about. All right. Melody Edwards has owned and operated multiple service businesses over the past 20 years, including her current ventures, Renew Holiday Lights and Homeserviceva.com. Since being diagnosed with ADHD in her 30s, she has spent the past decade obsessively studying how to harness the gifts found in the sparkly part of her brain while learning to override the critical part. Melody and her former virtual assistant, Din Assis, did I say that right?
Dean, yeah.
Okay, are VA matchmakers and have created the business they wished had existed when Melody first started hiring VAs. With their patience, guidance, and support, you'll build a strong relationships with a virtual assistant so you can simplify your business and gain back your time. Love it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited to have you on. You've got such a unique perspective on a lot of different things. Before we get into kind of the VA portion of it, I want to ask you about like how did you get into the home service industry?
Yeah.
Not a lot of lovely ladies out there, so I think it's
No.
awesome. And how did you get started?
So when I was 17, I really wanted to go to Europe and I didn't have any money. And so a family friend had a window cleaning company. I ended up working for him for the season. I really hated it, but I made good money, went to Europe, kept coming back, worked again as a window cleaner, and eventually I ended up buying his company.
Nice.
And I ended up in the window cleaning industry for over 20. I mean, I still consider myself a window cleaner, so we'll say 28 years. So most all my adult life. And I've done other things too in that time, but that's how I ended up in the home service industry.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
So you work for a company and then you're like, I'm just going to buy them out.
Or yes, I think he gave me the opportunity more than I was like I wasn't on top of my game back then. So it was a really great opportunity though. I had no clue what I was doing at the time. I've learned a lot the hard way since then.
Yeah. That's why I think, in our position now, we all learned like the hard way and we're like, man, there's these other easier ways. What were
Yeah.
some of the hardest things thinking back? Like, or even now, like what's some of the hardest things about running a service business?
So I'm really, really good with understanding who my customers are. A lot of people don't understand, or a lot of business owners don't recognize that most of their customers are actually women. Like if you're doing residential work, 80% or more of your customers tend to be women. And I don't know how it is in the lighting industry. I know for holiday lights, it's still pretty even with that for residential work that we do. But that being the case, I could really understand what their needs were and I would study them even. I would talk to them. I'd ask them out to coffee. I would have conversations, ask them what they liked about, you know, service companies, what they didn't like. And so I got really good at understanding that relationship. What I was not good at in the beginning was money. I think a lot of us struggle with money in business. If you're not, I'm not really money motivated. I'm very purpose driven. Like you're a helper. I'm somebody who really loves to make people feel happy and good. And so I didn't learn about money until really I read Profit First. And that just changed my whole outlook because what I realized is I can't do I don't like numbers, but I don't mind percentages. And so redoing my budget in terms of looking at it in percentages totally changed everything for me. That was one big struggle for me. The other one would be, of course, employees. Most of us struggle with that in the beginning. I wanted to be like one of the guys. I wanted to be like everybody else, and I really didn't want to be differentiated back in the day. And what I realized is that I was not being true to who I am. I wasn't building a culture. And so I started really digging into who I am, which is at the time, it was woman owned, purpose driven. And I just started building everything around that messaging. And I really have not struggled with finding employees, even in this past year with my lighting business. I just do it a different way, and I have a different perspective on how to find good employees as well. So those are two issues I've had in the past. Um, I'm trying to think of the other. There's so many issues, you know that. There's always
Well,
things.
those are big ones. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that almost everybody can relate. Even myself, I'm definitely more like money driven in a lot of areas, but at
Yeah.
the same time, like especially getting started, I felt
Mhm.
guilty for charging my
Yes.
worth, you know, and it's like,
Yes.
well, like, no, I just want to help this person. But then you
Mhm.
realize quickly, like, you're gonna have to have money to keep the charity going, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah.
and that's really what it comes down to is most people aren't charging enough
No.
because they feel guilty, like you said, like, they're just trying to some people would drive hours out of their way,
Oh,
go
yeah.
see the nicest stuff. It's like, that's great, but that's gotta be on charity time, not business time. Because if you wanna run a business, it costs money to run a business.
Well, and if they're like me, I would go and as soon as I meet somebody, I'm their best friend. And then I'm like, I want to give this rich person a discount because I
Yeah,
like them, you know? And then I'm like, but can I feed my family? Maybe, you know. So it's hard. It's hard to reframe it, but people who hire us to do this work, they have the money. They don't call us unless they have the money and they want to have the best. And so you want to be the best for them, and that is giving them a gift.
yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, that is a gift. I mean, they gotta pay for it, but when someone pays for something and you really have put so much energy behind it,
Yeah.
they are so grateful. It's
Yes.
like, "Here's $10,000. Thank you so much." And like
Yes.
that is where the magic happens. So,
It really
that's such
is.
a wonderful feeling. The next thing you mentioned was the employees, and I'm glad you brought it up because hiring, I mean, it's recruiting, it's training, it's all this stuff, which is kind of the main thing that we're gonna talk about today.
Yeah.
And this year, I mean, this last couple of years, I have not been running a service business, but
Yeah.
all my clients, I mean, I hear the war stories and the horror stories and stuff like that. And like, I feel like this year, the past year has been harder than ever, the last 2 years, even than before. So let's kind of get into that. Why did you end up starting homeserviceva.com?
So really what it came down to is I had the opportunity to buy my friend's 30 or 40-year-old holiday lights company. It was like the only game in town at the time. I still had the window cleaning company and I said to my family, "No problem. I can do both at the same time. We have enough employees." And I had no clue that first season. This was back in 2020. And so after that, I realized I love lights. I've always loved decorating and lighting and things like that, but I really love the holiday lighting. And it was like a no-brainer, especially after going through 2020 to sell my window cleaning company. I really understand you have those moments of clarity where you don't have to overthink it. I didn't even overthink it. And so at that point, there's something about me. I'm a recovering workaholic always. And I
Right.
pretty much dumped the business and gave it, it was on somebody else. And then suddenly I was like, oh no, what am I going to do the rest of the 8 months of the year? And I'm not good with space. And so I talked to friends and some my business coaches, and they really suggested that I go into this because I'm good at it. And it really didn't take me long to realize I wanted to partner with Dean, who was my original virtual assistant. Like she was my first full-time VA, and we just have such a great friendship and connection. Um, that I'm a visionary, she's the implementer. She gets stuff done. And so it's been really exciting, the journey since then. That was last year. I think we started in March, really building it out.
That's awesome. That is
Yeah.
so cool. I love that you've already like distinguished. Okay, I'm like, it took me like 15 years to figure out I was a visionary, and it just happened like 2 weeks ago. But you've already got that.
So yeah.
Let's rewind a little bit even more. What is a VA? What is a virtual assistant?
So a virtual assistant is literally just somebody who does your office work. They cannot sweep your floor, they cannot get your mail, they can get your email, but they can do pretty much anything else that can be done on a computer. And I had office managers and office assistants for many years. What I realized over time was that because of my ADD, I have a tendency to get very easily distracted. So if I was in the same office as somebody who was working with me, first of all, there's always a lot of questions coming your way, and that's a distraction. And then secondly, I would just start chatting with them. And so I realized having a virtual assistant for me is a lot more freedom and gives me a lot more time and the ability to delegate a little easier than if somebody was right in front of me. I know a lot of people think it's the opposite, that you need to train somebody who's right in front of you. And for some people that might be best for them. That didn't work for me. So
Gotcha.
yeah, a virtual assistant can be, so we have general assistants who just run your, they do your data entry, they can take phone calls, they can do anything literally that you can think of. They can train. I teach people to have VAs train themselves often because we overthink training. And so they can take over many things, your software. They can take classes for you that you mean to take, but you don't have time to take, and give you a cheat sheet. So that's a general assistant, but an executive assistant is what I have to have in my life. And my current assistant is named Lovely. She and before her Kia, not too long ago, she basically manages all my travel. They manage they have the templates that tell me everywhere I'm supposed to be when I'm traveling. They help me answer emails. They take care of almost all my email. I don't even deal with email as much as possible.
And I will say this is true, guys, because just scheduling Melody, this was kind of cool actually,
Mhm.
because just scheduling Melody for this, I just hired an executive assistant who is virtual, right? And this is kind of new, fresh waters for me too, guys. But it was pretty cool because I peeked into the email chain and I saw my executive assistant communicating with Melody's executive assistant to get all this stuff done. And I showed up somehow, Melody showed up somehow,
Yeah,
and it works, and what Melody's talking about is pretty cool to see about the behind the scenes of it.
yeah. So it's really been transformative for me, and I wanted to be able to give people that ability to have that in their business because it wasn't like this isn't easy for me. It's not easy to delegate. It's not easy to do many of the things that business owners struggle with, but you can teach yourself and train yourself how to have that mindset to allow you to enjoy an executive assistant who can let you do the bigger things in your business because they're taking care of all of the other things.
Okay, so let's talk about, like, in the lighting industry, we'll just talk specifically landscape lighting.
Sure.
Typically, someone gets started, they do the installs themselves, then they go do a sell, and then they do the install, and then like, "Oh, crap, I forgot to even invoice that person." And that's
Yes.
kinda where it starts, right? And then like, "Oh, shoot, I forgot to order materials. Oh, shoot, I forgot to do this. I forgot we
Hmm.
gotta, schedule this," and then they get behind on phone calls. So, is that where someone should start with, is just, like, some of those tasks that really you could train anyone on? It doesn't require your superhero, superhuman, like, sales
Yeah.
ability.
So, yes, I think a lot of business owners feel like they and they alone know how their business runs and nobody will ever be able to figure it out because it's unique and special, right? We've created this baby. And really, whatever you've learned, you can teach somebody else or they can teach themselves. You don't have to teach your VA or your assistant how to do your software, how to enter appointments into your calendar. All of these software programs have training already set up. You're usually when we insert ourselves in there, we're causing more chaos than helping. So if people are smart when they're starting, they should have a VA as quickly as they can because it allows them to stay on top of phone calls, emails, do what they say that they're going to do, and also their family not will still like them because they
Right.
won't be going all day out in the field and then coming home and emailing and phone calling till 9 o'clock at night and missing all their kids' games and or whatever it might be, their friend time. Um, but I will say that when I was young and getting started, I don't think I would have had the courage to invest in that. And so I think having this conversation is helpful because hopefully it'll help people to understand how easy it can be.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I learned from you just last month was that, like, let them train themselves, because
Yeah.
it's super overwhelming. Like, when you're busy and you're like a 1 or 2 or 3-man show, you're
Yeah.
like, "Well, even if I hired someone, how am I gonna train them? How am I gonna find the time to do this?" And what you guys do is phenomenal in, like, in some of the stuff we'll talk about. But even then, what you taught me, and I just kind of full disclosure, I didn't use
Yeah.
Melody's service to hire. I actually ended up hiring a friend, but Melody was the one that inspired me because I was looking here locally in Utah, and I thought I had to have somebody in the office. I mean, I just was like so close-minded, like, no, like I'm okay with like a regular assistant being on the other side of the world, but for some reason I thought my executive assistant has to be here to hold my hand and do all this other stuff. And it was literally after our conversation, I was like, wait, like I am limiting myself. I could now open up the talent pool to the world. And instantly a friend of mine's, it came to my mind. And I was like, man, if she is available and would want to work, she would be a great executive assistant, right? And now I hired her. You know what I
That's
mean?
awesome.
And I said, you can even go talk to her. I was like, okay, I just learned this tip. You're going to train yourself on this stuff. Go through my email and see how I respond to a lot of these things.
Ooh,
And
can I tell this trick?
that's what she's been doing. Yeah.
Okay, this is my favorite of all of the things I've created. This is definitely something that helped me a lot for training, but it's so exciting once you hear it because it helps you to understand a whole different way of thinking about training, which is what it did for you. So if you have a business and you've been around for a while, you have tons of emails if you've kept them, hopefully, and you can have your VA or your assistant go into those emails and start looking for common themes among emails. We always have to do estimates. We always have returning customers, maybe, or some of us do, who want quotes. And so once they start to see the commonalities, then they create templates that they can use. And when they're going through, they will look at commonly asked questions that people always come up with, and they can create an FAQ. Uh, so it would be email templates, but it's an FAQ form. And then sometimes we have issues that we have to deal with. And anytime they see a problem that has been solved, they can make a troubleshooting guide based on those things that you've already done in the past. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? And sometimes things that come up that are different, but most of the time, 90% of the things we're dealing with are just repeat things. So once they have all that and they've created these templates, they send them to you. You make a quick video back and just explain to them, like, this looks great here. I would just change these words, because you want them to take ownership over the words and the work. Because when they're writing it, that's another way that they're remembering things in their head. If you just handed it to them, it's not in their brain, you know? And then you do that back and forth until the templates are ready for you. The next step is they can draft your emails. So that can take like just a day or two. They can be drafting your emails, but they don't send them yet. They draft them, and you go in and you look, and again, you make a quick video, a Loom video or whatever, and just say, hey, this email looks great, but I would just change this because this date isn't going to work. If you look at my calendar, just explain it quickly. And then they fix it, they send it. When they are at about 90% with their emails, when they're sending at about a 90%, only have like 10% of the time they have questions, but they ask you, they're ready to start sending your email for you. And I don't go in my inbox. I almost never go in my inbox if I can help it. I've been lately because I'm training with my other VA. I'm training my new VA. And so, but we have a Slack line, which Slack is a software we use to keep communication going in our company, called Mel's Emails. And she'll just copy them into there so that I don't have to go back and forth between places. But
Nice.
getting them to train themselves, you can do that same technique with phone calls if you record them. And do you feel, Ryan, like that was really helpful to you?
Well, big time. And I mean, that's just one element. Like
Yes.
not only my assistant now, but other assistants in the past, just pulling that trigger. It's hard because you're like, well, I don't even have a process for training them. It's like
Yes.
they literally will create their own process, and
Yeah.
they'll be like, why are you doing it like this? And you're like,
Mhm.
I don't know. And they're like, well, what if we did this? Like, genius.
Yeah,
Document that, do the screenshots. Now we have training, so
absolutely.
they can create the training for you, which is phenomenal. So that they
Yes,
can either get promoted to a higher position, or if they're only planning on being there a year, then whoever your next one is can just step right in and you're good to go.
absolutely. Yeah. And that's really, it's very simple. We overcomplicate it all the time. We overteach. We will sit down with people and show them, we'll show them what we're doing, but we won't have them do it in front of us. And so they don't ever really learn. It doesn't absorb. So this is a great way to have them do it for you. And yeah, it
One
works.
of, one of the questions I was going to ask, and it ties in with the question that we just got from Manny. I was going to ask, like, what's kind of the biggest hang up with people when they hear about the idea of hiring a VA?
Training.
Well,
They're and
so
yeah.
does language ever come up?
So it, of course, language does come up. So my business partner, Dean, she's from the Philippines. And so we only hire from the Philippines specifically because they learn English, American English in school. So they speak Tagalog, but they also speak English. And so you have a whole pool of people who already speak English. They're highly educated. Most people that we hire have already gone to college and they might have degrees in something else. Um, but like, because right now, honestly, VAs make more. Like I have a VA whose father makes less than her, and he's been an engineer for 30 years. And it's not like a lot of money, but the Philippines, a living wage is so different than it is here. Um, Language can be a barrier in some ways. So if it's an accent, that can be something. But when we're working with clients, we ask them, what kind of accent are you willing to take on? Because sometimes people might have an accent, but they're great content writers. Or, sometimes they might be great speakers, but they might write in a weird way. So that can be one of the things. I did see Manny asked a question about what languages they speak. Is that the question he
Yeah,
asked?
I think
Yeah,
I think that's a common concern is like, well, wait, where are these VAs located and do they
yeah,
speak English and am I going to be able to communicate with them? Or will our clients be able to?
yes.
Written, spoken, all that stuff.
So a lot of things also that people are concerned about what their clients will think. And they don't want to feel like they're calling a call center, right? And that's like my biggest fear was always I don't want them to feel like they're calling me and they're getting like a call center in the Philippines. But the thing that you have to do is train them to represent your company. Like we don't take the time to culture train them. We don't take the time to tell them about the area that we live in. Like they need to know all of these things so that when a customer calls and says, "Hey, I live near the bridge at this place," or they're giving it directions, they can be like, okay, that won't be a problem. And they'll understand kind of what the customer's talking about. My VAs, when I have running my lights business or the window cleaning business, they would know what the weather was each day so that they could help us reschedule crews if needed, or if there was rain, we could email customers. Like there's all sorts of information that we need to be able to provide the VA so that they can represent us better.
Yeah, well, I mean, well said. And to be honest, to be fair to a VA that's in the Philippines or wherever they're at, I had an office manager that I hired, and one of her first calls, she wasn't real familiar with the area either. I mean,
Yeah.
she was familiar with our little area, but when we went out, and it was awesome because she was doing great on the call, going through the script and everything. And the lady goes, she's like, "Oh, where are you located?" She's like, "Oh, we're in Highland Park." And she's like, "Where's Highland Park?" And I'm like, "No, do not ask where is Highland Park is where all the $5 million customers
Right.
of ours are." Like that, do not ever ask that question. So
Yeah.
again, I hadn't gone over that. And so she was even in the area, 20 miles away. So
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter if they're, 20,000 miles away or two.
Right.
Right? Everyone needs to be trained on those things and familiar
Well,
with the
I
areas.
made an actual map of where we lived, and I like a digital map, and then I created areas so that they could see where we were supposed to book. If we were in this area, these are the better areas to book in. I really laid it out as well as I could. And yeah, it took a little time to do that. It was well worth it.
So let's talk about that. You mentioned like a few different tasks. I know for me, I still have two VAs. I've had them for about a year now, and they're in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And at first I was almost under the impression that you could just hire one person and then they could just do everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's a common misconception. Maybe just
Yes.
talk about that for a minute. You mentioned copywriting, all these different things.
Yeah, so I say they can do anything, but not everything. Because if somebody wants to learn, if they have a willingness and an eagerness to learn, literally they can learn anything. You can get them classes on Udemy or just have them study. For instance, I wanted somebody to learn Facebook blueprint, because Facebook has the Facebook blueprint. So they can go and do a lot of studying to become an expert on topics, but you can't have them doing every single thing, especially as you grow. So in the beginning, if people have a company and they just want a general VA, And even sometimes they don't want phone calls, but answering emails, data entry. I think like tracking crews, like especially like making sure that the crews have the information that they need and that the notes are being taken care of. These are all the things that we tend to miss when we're in a rush. We don't remember to write down the notes or, put them in our CRM. So having them running all of that stuff, social media, they can do that. Um, I can't even, we actually have what is it called? A questionnaire that people can take. It's a task questionnaire and it'll show them everything that a VA can do. And they can take that quiz. I'll give a link for people who want to do that. And it'll show them kind of in order of priority of what a VA could do for them. And then they'll get a PDF of that. But it helps because they can do a lot of things, but not everybody is going to be great at everything. And especially specialized skills, a lot of VAs are great designers if they're using Canva, or I've noticed that most of my VAs are pretty good at designing things. Um, they still need to be led on how you want things done. Just because you get a VA does not mean they're going to understand what you want or how you want it. These are things we need to teach them. And for executive assistants, if somebody has a company, they have an office manager, their office is set, but they're a mess because they're all over the place. They might have multiple businesses. That's definitely my case. Or maybe they have ADD and they just need somebody to like be their brain. That's another thing where an executive assistant can really just take over and change your life. I can't live without one.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. The reason I brought it up is because it's weird. Like even me, I fell into the trap of thinking, "Oh, this I could just hire one person to do multiple," but it's just not true. And
No.
even as like lighting specialists will say, "Oh, well, you wouldn't hire an electrician to do your landscape lighting, right?" Even though like that's like a common thing. And so, but then we don't apply it into our own life, into our own
Yes.
business. And
Yeah.
again, what's funny is a lot of stuff you talk about should just be implemented anyway, even if you were hiring someone in person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
But it's hard, like people who come into business, it's not often, and I feel like it's more often now, but I've been in home service for 28 years now, and it's not often that people come into this industry like graduated from Harvard and being like, and now I'm going to start a window cleaning company or a landscaping company. Like usually we start off in the trade, and so transitioning to the mindset of the business owner is very difficult and takes a lot of like insight into how you work. And oh, there are VAs in France. I see Manny's. There's my ADD. I'm like, yes, there are VAs in France.
well, that's the thing, like, you can the term virtual assistant just means
Anywhere.
they're not where you're at.
Yeah, we only work with VAs in the Philippines because that's where my first VA was from, and I want her on my team for all the intercultural communication issues that come up or anything. I want somebody there who can handle that stuff. But you can go on Upwork. I've hired people from France, Manny, who I had a legal issue in France, believe it or not. And so I hired a girl to do legal research for me, and she was fantastic. So you can actually find people on Upwork for jobs like that as well.
Yeah, and Manny is in Canada, French speaking,
Uh,
so it makes sense, like,
they have people in Canada too.
he's gonna have
Yeah,
different requirements. How
absolutely.
much I know the range is gonna vary, but how much typically do you pay a VA?
So in our company, we're matchmakers and we're recruiters. We are not, an agency. So we always recommend to clients that they don't start lower than $5 an hour. Some people start like there are people in call centers in the Philippines who are working for 250 or $3 an hour, which I think is like just not that's like not okay, because that's not a living wage. If you start somebody at $5 an hour, you're actually giving them a pretty good starting wage, and there's a lot to build up from there. And so even $6 an hour, $7 an hour is a lot of money for people. It's actually life-changing money sometimes where they can buy a car or they can buy a house, or put a down payment or things like that because money goes farther there. So I don't like to start people too much higher than that either. I don't know why this is, but when we've tried to hire people for higher starting wages, that doesn't always work out the way that we think it will. So for VAs who are just doing general VA work, $5 is good. If they're specialized, sometimes it's up to $10. We've hired We've looked for blueprint readers before, engineers. What else were we recently hiring? Digital marketing people, SEO specialists. Like if there's sometimes we hire for bigger companies, sales. In the Philippines has a lot of sales centers or call centers, and they are highly trained. And there's some great salespeople there, and that costs a little more sometimes because they have the skill.
Yeah, but like you said, even if you're paying more, I mean, at least here in the US, we have a problem, right?
Yes,
And there's a
absolutely.
shortage of people willing to work, and then the minimum wage might as well have been raised to 25 an hour or something. It's just crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so, but here you're tapping into a group of people that not only are willing, but are grateful because
Yes,
it is, like you said, like in some cases, life-changing money.
it
And you've
is.
got
Yeah.
people willing to do it, and they just need direction, they need training. And that's why I think it's awesome to have you on here. I think it's
Yeah.
gonna open up a lot of people's minds. Like I said, I didn't even know what a VA was 2 years ago. And even now, I've had a VAs for over a year now, or about a year now. And then I just hired my executive assistant who's in
Yeah.
Texas. So even though a lot of people think VA, it's in the Philippines, whatever, but a
No.
virtual assistant is anywhere. So
Yes.
I'm digging it. I'm digging it. It's because like you can just now you can tap into a pool of 7 billion people
Yes.
instead of just this little pool that's in front of you, you know?
Yeah. The world becomes your workforce.
I love
A-
it.
And I just want to say that one of the biggest issues that people do have with VAs is actually the lack of preparing to get them on board. Because if you're really super busy right now, believe it or not, you're not going to be less busy when you have to train your VA, and you'll just ghost them. A lot of people ghost them. And in the beginning, a VA is like so excited, especially a good one. They are ready to hustle. They want to work. And if you're not ready like that, you can start the relationship in a bad way. And that might not recover, you know? And that's like normal of any relationship. So I really recommend that people plan ahead for what they want them to do. Make training videos. That is the easiest, quickest way that you can get somebody onboarded as quickly as possible, and so that you don't have to be there in the beginning all the time. You just have to meet with them and answer questions sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. One thing that helped me was I didn't even have time at the beginning. I probably had time, but I told myself I didn't have time.
Yes.
And so I got on the phone like this and just on a Zoom. And all I
Yeah.
did was record the meeting so that when they had questions later, they didn't have to call me. They could just go back and
Yes.
watch. Like I would be like, here's how I do this. And we would go through me doing the task, and it
Yeah.
was recorded so they could just watch it. And then they built out the training like step action table from there.
Well, and right now we are all doing the task, right? Every day we are doing the task, whatever the task might be. Get Loom, which is a great recording software, screen sharing software. Record as you're doing the task. It
Right.
doesn't have to be in person. That's how you build a a training portfolio of like different lessons for people.
So
So
let's
yeah,
talk about your business, Home Service VA,
yeah,
because it is different than just like obviously people could be like, okay, well, that's good advice. I'm going to hire a VA.
yeah.
And what are some of the pitfalls of doing that on their own that you see that everyone runs into versus just go to homeserviceva.com, hire Melody, and
Yeah.
get it done right?
It's like any other hiring that you do. Of people, if you're good at hiring, then you'll probably be good at hiring a VA. But there's also a lack of cultural understanding. So sometimes, for instance, Filipinos are very shy, and you might see them as being, for instance, I'm trying to think of like what usually comes up for people. You might think that they're not following through or not being proactive, but they need a lot of permission from you, like constant permission for quite a while until you guys have developed a trusting relationship. And so we work really hard right from the outset on communication. We give the VA a DISC assessment, we give the client a DISC assessment. We actually really work to find somebody. We don't use that as the only guideline, but we use it as a way to find somebody who might be a complementary personality profile so that they can fill in the weaker areas that an owner has with their strengths. Um, Another problem is being able to find a good VA. Sometimes people will have two jobs at the same time. And so we do a lot of background checks in the Philippines. We have a recruiter and an assistant recruiter, and their whole job is interviewing people, doing background checks, calling their references, just like we would do here, and making sure that we've done all the due diligence possible. Because you can end up with somebody it feels like they're not working as hard as they should be, or they haven't done it enough. And sometimes it's literally because they have another job and they're working both at the same time. And so when we have found that, like, we will do checks sometimes and see, like, in our hiring portal, we can see if they've applied for jobs elsewhere sometimes. And we'll let a client know, like, hey, something is off. They're applying for other jobs. Because we kind of think, like, we'll hire a VA and then it's done. And then we get to go off and do our thing and they'll just do the work. But it's still a relationship that you have to build. So we do all the work. Like, we assess the need of whatever the need is that you have. We're going to figure it out in a very simple assessment that I created. It's all check boxes as much as possible so that it's as quick as I could make it for people who are busy. And then we take that and we turn it into a training plan so that we're going to train the business owner on everything they need to know about the Philippines, how to pay a VA, how to not share passwords with the VA, what kind of software to use to make communication easiest. Like, anything they need to know, we'll teach them. And then we help them go through and create their training videos. And we tell them what they don't need, which is they don't need any software training. And then we will also onboard them with their VA. And that's like my favorite part, because we go over their discs and we really talk about the best ways to communicate together. That is the part that I think is so different. We do this in a very different way. And it's because I want to compress the amount of time it takes to build that relationship. And the last thing that we really do is we support people afterwards. We support the VAs. We have a VA support group that we just have in case they have questions. And we just make sure, because it's a lonely job. They're working from home. They don't really have a community a lot of the time. So we've created the community.
That's cool.
Yeah. And the same for business owners. We're always checking in with them. I kind of hate it because we don't really hear from people a lot afterwards if it's going well, but that's
Right.
also a great sign. If I don't hear from people, I just assume the worst, which is not my best quality. I should just assume the best because that's usually what's going on. But we have a really high success rate when it doesn't work, because we don't make you do not interview people. We literally take on the hiring. We find the person for you. We'll send you their information and for your approval, but you don't have to worry about any of that. If it doesn't work, we take ownership over that, and we will immediately find you a new VA. The training system's already in place, so it's an easier transition.
Love that.
Yeah.
So man, that's pretty cool. How long would it take for someone who's listening today and they're like, you know what, this is actually exactly what I need, and instead of putting it off this time, I'm gonna hire someone. I don't need to go get an office yet, so I save that.
Yes.
I'm not ready to commit to the full next level, but I do need an assistant. How long does it take from like that for they get you the information, that questionnaire, and then you like interview a bunch of people and find them and match them up to that like training session? How long does that take?
So we have lists of qualified VAs already that we've already put through the process that we've created. Sometimes we don't have the right client fit for them yet. So we have that pool of people already. And if we're lucky and we find the right fit, it can be very quick. However, I don't want it to take 1.5 to 2 weeks is like the shortest time I would like it to take, because getting a client to train and to make the videos takes time. And I want them to adapt to what they're about to experience. If you just hire a VA very quickly, most likely you're going to experience failure because you're not set up for success yet. And I want to set people up for success. So my goal is always within 1.5 to 2 weeks. Sometimes if it's a specialized position, it could take up to 3 weeks, but usually it won't.
Yeah, cool. And then in terms of, what was I was going to ask you about, you mentioned like them with other jobs and stuff like that. Is it okay if they part-time, or you're always like, no, it's best to do full-time?
So I always recommend full-time, because business owners underestimate how much a VA can do. It happens all the time. And so you might say, and this is my story with Dean. When I first hired her, I said, Dean, I only have 20 hours a week for you. And within 3 weeks, she was working 50 hours a week because
Right.
I was like, oh my God, she can do that and this. And she was building my Christmas lights, employee training systems. Like she did so much. And I haven't stopped since then. Like my VAs still work 45 hours a week. I try to keep it at 40, but it's hard. But like there's still, we are always moving forward. And so people can hire somebody who's part-time, but it means that you're risking them having another job. Most people need a full-time job and they want the security of a full-time job. And if you want somebody who's going to have your back and your back alone, you should hire full-time. And it's really not a lot of money for the value that you're
Yeah.
going to be getting, for the money that they can make you. You know, they can email your old customer, your prospects who didn't respond, or customers, and just say, hey, I'm just checking in, wanted to see how you're doing. Can we do anything for you? Do we have time for that most of the time? No.
I mean, that task alone is going to pay for them and
Yes,
like 2 more VAs. So
absolutely.
I was the same way. Again, I didn't know what a virtual assistant was back then, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Man, can I hire someone to answer the phones?" And I knew I needed it, but I was like, "I can't afford it because that means I gotta get an office because she's not gonna
Right.
answer phones at my house." And so it was just this thing that kept holding me back, holding me back.
Our
This
minds.
this process makes it so easy, you know?
Yes.
And when I hired her, same thing, I was like, "Whoa, we only get like 2 calls a day. What's she gonna do the rest of the time?" And before you know it, it's like, man, we need her to get an assistant
Yes.
because all those things that you don't think about, and all of a sudden your follow-up is better, your customer
Yes.
service goes through the roof, and you pay for that position very, very quickly.
It's that list of things that you've always wanted to do, but you've never had the time to do them. And that is what a VA can do for you. They can do those projects, or they can allow you to do those higher level projects. It's pretty cool.
That's cool. Well, I love your process, because I don't know, you might be the only person in the world that likes doing this. I don't like to interview. I don't want to like, put a job posting up. I don't want to do that. I want the dream scenario to be like, hey, Melody, this is who I am. This is my personality. This is the things I need get done. And then you just provide this magic person in front of me. Like that sounds
Yeah.
pretty stellar.
I'll tell you a secret. I actually don't like to do any of those things, which is why I have a team. I am the person who loves building systems. I will never follow my own systems, which is why I build them simple for other people. And so that's what you can do as a business owner, or anybody out there can do as a business owner. You have to have somebody who can follow your systems, but it doesn't mean that you have to always be following them too. So I've created it so that this is easy for people, because that's what I wanted when I started to, and that's what I need in my life. Because we're all over the place all the time as business owners. So anybody can do this. You just have to have the mindset shift. That's the hardest part, is making that mindset shift.
Big time. Well, I like what you're doing, Melody. I love it
Thank
actually.
you.
You mentioned I think you called it the support group, which is really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I need to figure out. I need to. We talked about this briefly, but I'm gonna reach out to you because I need to get my VAs plugged into that.
Put
And
them in our group. We have a free group, and we're just starting with like a pro level group that's going to have a lot more support. But the
cool.
free group, anybody can join into that. So I would love to have them in the group.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess kind of last question. We've talked through the process of getting them and matching them and doing the training. How then, like you've got on your end kind of that support group, but from a business owner standpoint, what can we do to keep them involved and feel like they're a part of the culture and they're not just this person that's somewhere, this mysterious
Yeah.
place?
So for any company, culture is first, right? Like we all know that it comes to assistant, you want to include them in your weekly meetings. If you're having a team meeting, they're in the team meeting via Zoom, but still they're there.
Yep.
You want to update them about what's going on in the company. My VA for Holiday Lights, she was in Slack with all of my employees, and she was the main person who they communicated with. They didn't even know she was in the Philippines till the end of the season, but she was a part of that team. They looked at her the same way as the rest of us. And so that's what you have to do, is be mindful about what makes everybody else as an employee a part of the team. We send our people shirts, like gifts of like company shirts. We can send people's VAs gifts through our company as well.
Cool.
So yeah, we do. That's how you got to do it, or that's how I'd recommend it.
Sweet. Well, thanks so much, Melody. I really appreciate you coming on here,
Thank
sharing
you.
with us this information. It's super valuable. I hope people take advantage of it. And it's just such an easy step, I think, to getting your business to the next level. So,
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ryan. I had fun.
no, that was fun. Will you post a link in the comments afterward?
Yes, I will.
Okay, cool. All right. Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Melody. Appreciate you
Thank
so
you.
much. You guys have a great week. We'll see you next week. All right. Don't forget, Tom G at emeryallen.com. 10% off your first order. See you guys.